Hi, I'm Rick Dascher. Thanks for having me. Good evening, Superintendent Green and distinguished members of the board. And thanks for this opportunity to speak. Allow me to start by saying thank you again for the facility aspect of the E-SPLOST plan that was put in front of us. These are critical choices being made for the betterment of the facilities and the students in them. Now, what I'm here in particular to discuss tonight is category 2 of the plan. We would ask for 60 to 90 days for an honest, detailed planning process to play out, and for it to include public input. Specifically, a true apples-to-apples comparison of a Doraville cluster versus the current option B. During that time period, we can conduct true community input sessions, including a legitimate survey. We expect that will reveal widespread support for a Category 2 project list that involves smaller high school capacity additions and a Doraville cluster. And equally valid, all of the stakeholders need to have a voice, not just steering committees and school councils. To wit, I am also here as a representative of the Sagamore Hills Civic Association, of which I am a member, and as such I speak for larger community impacts, even for non-parents, including concerns such as traffic, a sense of community, safety, etc. Next, I'd like to talk a little bit about a very important word these days, transparency, a word we've heard many times from the team, and you pride yourselves on it, as well you should. Transparency is a critical factor in making things right for all parties involved. We too would praise you for it. We would like to, but to do so we need answers for questions that continue to swirl around option B of category 2. Here's a few things. Before September 27th, the public had misinformation or no information about what was really proposed. And the survey used was something we were not told was being used as a tool to move to a decision. Regarding the choices that were offered in the original 3 options, they were confusing, limiting, and widely misunderstood, which resulted in a frustration that I think still lingers today in this room. So we ask you, please be in full transparency. The community is engaged. Please take advantage of it. To move forward with the plan the district has brought forward, despite the massive amount of community concern, would be a major breach of trust. I'm going to repeat that, would be a major breach of trust. Let me finish by saying this too. We've heard that our concern as parents is being written off as just angst about redistricting. That's not the case. The concerns we have move beyond just the obvious problems with the assumed student moves. And where our groundswell began with the desire to remain aligned with our Lakeside High School community, we now share just as strong concerns about the overall lack of inclusive transparency to the process, along with the direction the current mega school plan will take us. What you will see here tonight and hear from all of us is just one example of the grassroots swell that has begun. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming, Rick.
Hello, my name is Peter Steckel, and I'm here to speak as a parent of 2 students here in the DeKalb County Public School System who attend Sagamore Hills Elementary School and ideally would attend Lakeside High School down the road. I want to thank the school board for giving me the opportunity to speak. I'd like to thank the people here for giving me an opportunity to speak, and I'd like to thank my 11th grade social studies teacher for this opportunity to speak. I'm a lifelong resident of this county. I was born and raised here, just a few miles down the road. I'm a product of this county. And I want to know what's happened to this county. I mean, we used to be considered one of the best counties in the country. I pass signs every day that point to Lakeside High School being one of the best schools in the country. And we're a county that's racked by scandal. We're a county that almost lost its accreditation. I mean, what kind of statement is that to the governance that has been occurring? We have trusted this county with our children for its education, for its safety, for its learning. And trust is something that is earned, and trust is something that is lost. And so After having reviewed this process on how the county, and specifically the school board, has chosen to determine how the county will spend the E-SPLOST funds, I've got to ask you to hold off on this vote, at least as it goes to Category 2 today. Delay it for 60 to 90 days so that we have more time to have a more transparent process and to regain our trust in it. If not, you're going to continue to lose it. The north end of the county has basically been in open revolt for the last few years. We've watched Dunwoody become a city. We've watched Brookhaven become a city. We've watched the south end of the become a city with Stonecrest. You're going to lose more to the north end farther. And what's going to happen next, if that doesn't seal it, is you're going to end up where we start to create our own school districts. And then you're going to be losing our tax dollars. It was House Bill 4 last year. It's coming up for vote again this year, or it should be, under the 2017-28 legislation. Eventually, you're going to get it where we break apart this school district, create our own, and then we take our money back. I ask you and implore you to earn our trust and delay this vote so we have a more transparent process. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
My name is John Ayoub, and I'm here as a Sagamore parent. I have 4 children, 3 who've attended Sagamore, Henderson Mill, and also Lakeside. I'm here also today to ask you to defer the vote on Category 2 of Plan B. As a bit of a background, I'm a lifelong DeKalb resident. I attended Briar Vista Elementary School, and I went to Druid Hills High School. Ironically, 2 weeks before I went to Druid Hills High School, I was supposed to attend Briarcliff High School, which is the location where Category 2 proposes to build a new mega school that's going to cause the biggest traffic jam in the history of the world in our neighborhood. And I asked that you today think about why Briarcliff High School was transformed into the Jim Cherry Center as an open campus. It was transformed to that because it's not a good place to have a high school. It's a good place maybe for a magnet school, for instance, or an open campus, a central location next to the highway, but not a mega 2,500 to 3,000 student school. The traffic would be horrific. If any of you have driven down North Druid Hills Road at that time of day, you know what a disaster the traffic is. Imagine adding 2,500 students. My 14-year-old daughter, who is about to turn 15, I have nightmares thinking about her driving down that road across I-85 to get to school every day at rush hour traffic in the morning. It is something that I know that the great parents of our neighborhood do not want. And I cannot imagine what it would be like for the Cross Keys community to have to travel the other way across I-85 to go to school. It would be a disaster. Also, think about it. If you create a mega school with that type of traffic problem, you're going to end up with students who can't participate in after-school activities because they're not going to be able to get a ride home. They're going to be late for school, as it is today. My 14-year-old, when she attended Henderson, her school bus was late almost every day to Henderson because they couldn't get to Henderson. Imagine if you switched it and you went the other way across I-85. That is not a good plan. Here's the solution. Create a Doraville cluster. Maintain I-85 between Claremont and North Druid Hills Road as a natural traffic boundary. And if you have to use Briarcliff High School, the Briarcliff High School site, consider using it as a central location, something like a magnet school, something like an open campus. It can relieve overcrowding, but it should not be used as a primary location for a high school. It would be a disaster for the community. Finally, as an attorney, I wanted to give you a little bit of what the standards are for a rational basis in order to redistrict. And that is minimizing travel time and transportation cost, fostering education and continuity, fostering walkability are all the critical factors. Folks, you have a chance to do something great today. Don't reshuffle the deck using our children. Create a better deck, one that is stable and that will last forever. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Good evening, Dr. Green and members of the board. My name is Stacey Godwin, and my children attend Montgomery Elementary School in the Chamblee cluster. This process started with the optimistic approval of E-SPLOST 5 in record-setting fashion back in May. What started out with broad community trust and support has sadly turned into mistrust. This sentiment change is the result of some controversial activities that have occurred since the May yes vote. Some examples are: 1, the questionable survey results; 2, the delayed release of affected high school addition plans; and 3, an ever-changing project list with substantial changes as recent as last Thursday. To say there is voters' remorse from E-SPLOST 5 supporters is an understatement. With such fierce public backlash over the proposed option before you tonight, I believe a yes vote would be detrimental to not only the public process we were supposed to be engaging in, but would put E-SPLOST 6 and beyond in jeopardy of voter approval. Fast forward to today. As I stand before you requesting a vote deferral on Category 2 of the project list, I don't think these hurdles are insurmountable. I still believe collaboration and compromise can happen between those who are so divided over which option should prevail, option A or option B. Coming from the Montgomery Elementary point of view, our original position paper stated a desire for a combined option A plus B approach, and that position hasn't changed. This recommendation sought to satisfy the desire for a rebuilt Cross Keys High School and a desperately needed fourth cluster in Region 1. You might wonder what will be accomplished during the deferral period. I have been encouraged by hearing about positive conversations within the last few days between those with opposing viewpoints. We will never make progress without overcoming these impasses. We must put aside our differences and work toward the common goal of the best possible education for all children in DeKalb County. There will be some compromise in this process, but I believe we can come together as a broad community during the deferral period and formulate a solution which all communities and stakeholders can support. Imagine how successful such a plan could be. Not only does this provide an opportunity for opposing sides to work together, but the public will expect no less from county planners and administrators engaged in these decisions and processes. We will expect those officials to hear and answer our concerns, be transparent and forthcoming with information, and truly consider all of the options available to address the severe overcrowding Regions 1 and 2 are facing. This deferral request should not hinder your vote in the other 4 important project categories. Those should be approved tonight so the entire county can begin to feel the benefits of E-SPLOST 5. This also applies to the site location work for the new elementary school in the Doraville area. This important task should proceed without delay. I hope all board members will consider hitting the reset button tonight as you choose to defer the vote on Category 2. Thank you for your time and service to the children of DeKalb County.
Thank you, Mrs. Godwin.
Good evening. My name is Rouchelle Longley, and I'm a parent of 3 Montgomery elementary students in the Chamblee cluster. I am the president-elect of the Montgomery PTA. Prior to having children, I spent 15 years in the education system as a teacher, and more than half of that time in DeKalb, where I taught at Farrington, Marbet, and Vanderlyn. I am here today to ask the board to please defer the vote for Category 2 of the E-SPLOST funds. In 2009, Nancy Creek Elementary was closed due to being underpopulated despite empirical evidence to the contrary. Families from all the schools affected pled with the board to keep Nancy Creek open to avoid the inevitable overcrowding. Today, both Montgomery and Huntley Hills Elementary are over capacity with absolutely no room for further growth. The community is concerned with the very real possibility of a similar situation occurring with our high schools if the current plan is approved. Current estimates indicate that Chamblee, Dunwoody, and Lakeside will be at or above capacity after the proposed additions are complete. Furthermore, it does not appear that the current population growth rates have been taken into account given the ongoing development in the cities of Brookhaven, Chamblee, Doraville, Dunwoody, as well as the Lakeside High School cluster. It is likely that we'll be discussing the same overcrowding issues of our area high schools not long after the proposed additions are made. It is incumbent upon this board to reassess the needs of Regions 1 and 2, including the building of a new high school where it is clearly needed, Doraville. A new high school in this area will alleviate further overcrowding issues at Chamblee, Cross Keys, Dunwoody, and Lakeside High Schools without disrupting the educational process. Without disrupting the educational process. A new high school in Doraville also identifies and rectifies another issue. It has been a long-standing position of DeKalb to maintain the integrity of the community school approach, as opposed to the big mega schools utilized by other metro area county schools. As an educator that has taught in various areas of DeKalb, I understand the importance and positive impact that smaller schools can have on a community. This is the main reason my family decided that DeKalb was where we wanted to be. The addition of a Doraville High School furthers this mission. Since the closure of Sequoia High School in 1989, Doraville has been dispersed amongst the communities. A new Doraville High School will inevitably lead to a school with tremendous parent, student, and teacher involvement that will make the city of Doraville and DeKalb County proud. We are asking the board to defer the vote in order to reassess the needs of Regions 1 and 2, up to and including 2 new high schools, one in Brookhaven and one in Doraville. We are growing, we are booming, we can't stop it, we need it. Our kids are not Lego blocks to be moved around, nor are they cattle to be herded in and out of facilities. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Longley.
Hi, my name is Lara Baldwin. I have 2 children at Sagamore Hills Elementary. I'm speaking today to ask that you defer the vote for Category 2. However, everyone says that you have made up your minds months ago. So I've been told I'm wasting my time, asking for a deferral. I'm wasting my days and my nights. I'm wasting my precious 3 minutes right now standing in front of you. Well, here it goes. I'm a positive person. I'm an optimist. I see the good in things. I see the good in DeKalb County schools. I see its potential for giving every student a good school and a good chance in life. Every day people say to me, Lara, why are you even trying at this point? DeKalb County schools, Lara, they do what they want. They don't listen. Nothing has changed. Backroom deals, no transparency, blah, blah, blah. DeKalb will never change. People laugh at me when I say, but this is different. The district almost lost its accreditation. Board members were removed. This is the new board. It's a new superintendent. This is DeKalb's big moment to make good decisions for all, to change its reputation. People roll their eyes at me and they stop listening. It's not easy being an optimist during this whole thing, but I believe you guys are listening. I really do. I feel like each one of you knows you should delay this vote and give us a chance to be heard. Oh, we were heard, you say, because we got to fill out surveys. But the surveys were vague and confusing, and if that was our chance, we were cheated. We want to trust you. We want the plan to be a plan that makes sense. You have yet to give us solid reasons as to why Plan B makes sense to solve the overcrowding everywhere. So what are the reasons? To solve overcrowding issues, Doraville clearly needs a high school, yet we are dismissed with there is no land and there aren't enough students to fill one. But there is land. Sequoia Middle is land for Doraville High School, and there are students to fill it. All of the overcrowded Doraville elementary schools. Build Doraville now. Build it now so it's ready for these students. Look, if one area is out of balance, it affects us all. All of the clusters can work together to find that balance. Please hear us. We have ideas that can keep most of what is great about option B and also make parts of option A work too. Why not try it? Why wouldn't you? The next roughly 90 days could be amazing for DeKalb, a turning point. Will you give it to us, or will you prove everyone right that DeKalb is still DeKalb, and you're just not going to listen? You're going to push on. You can change DeKalb's reputation for the better right now. You have the power to vote or the power to defer. Please defer the vote. I truly believe you will. I do. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Baldwin.
Good evening, Superintendent Green and distinguished members of the board. My name is Meg Scheid. I am pleased that I did not have to go behind Kim. I have worked with him, so that is a relief. I really like him. My request tonight is to also ask for the defer of the vote for just Category 2, or to ensure that we really think about the Category 2 as it pertains to additions to the high schools and creating a Cross Keys Brookhaven High School and plan for the Doraville High School so that we can have community schools and smaller schools, especially as it pertains to transportation and the size of the school. The foremost critical years of K-12 education is high school. No matter what happens to a child during K through 8th, learning English, repeating a grade, poor math background, the minute they land on high school ground, that high school is tasked with getting them successfully graduated in 4 years. When we talk about CCRPI, College Career Readiness Performance Index, it is the high school scores that drive the perception of success in a school district. We need our high schools to be successful, even with the challenges we tend to use as an excuse. Ease of transportation directly affects several factors for the CCRPI, especially when we are discussing low income and English as a second language. Let me talk about graduation rates and test scores. In high school, parents can legally leave their students alone. It is up to the student to get to school if they miss their bus. At the age of 16, they are no longer required to attend high school, but they're starting to drive. If a student is already challenged with getting 8 miles to school, sometimes taking an hour in traffic, and they are also being tempted by outside influence or wanting to work full-time, what do you think they're going to do? As also longer distances that cannot be handled by walking or borrowing a ride presents an almost insurmountable obstacle to participating in school activities. Students who are involved in at least one school activity, whether sport, team, or club, are at much less risk of dropping out. And this brings me to improving test scores. Students who are in the most challenged demographic, low income again, and English as a second language, need free test preparation and core subject tutoring that often happens after school and sometimes even on Saturdays. These students cannot stay after school if they can't get home. Dr. Green, I have the most hope in you that I've had in the 40 years that I've been in the DeKalb school system as a student and now as a parent. You said the key elements in our transformation is rigor, relevance, and relationships, especially relationships with parents and caregivers. Relationships with parents and community stand in stone. We need to build the community schools. As for making them as large as 2,500, I've researched those schools. It is not common to have large high schools over 2,000 with the demographics that we have in DeKalb. I really think that everyone in this room, whether they're wearing white or colors, can come back to the board and figure out a way to get a Cross Keys Brookhaven, plan for Doraville, and get smaller additions so that we can stick with community, small-sized schools and start really working on our education. Thank you.
Thank you, Meg.
Good evening, Dr. Green and members of the board. My name is Matt Ritchey, and I have 3 children within DeKalb County Schools. When my wife and I moved to Atlanta about 4 years ago, one of our main criteria for identifying a community to establish our roots in was to have a strong school system. We had heard about the county's history, both good and bad, but were reassured by what we had learned about our home elementary school of Montgomery, the county's rich magnet program, and about the diverse and continually improving Chamblee Middle School and Chamblee Charter High School. When we had the opportunity to vote for this last round of E-SPLOST funding, we voted in the affirmative, believing that making these funds available could be a game changer for the schools in our county. I have been actively engaged in the E-SPLOST allocation process, including participating in many of the meetings hosted by the county. While I applaud the county for setting up opportunities to share information and collect feedback, I always found something lacking when I left those meetings. In particular, during the small group sessions, the moderators, who are very well-intentioned county staff and consultants, were not able to address many of the foundational questions that were asked. Those were the answers that I needed, that we needed, to provide informed feedback. So many of us kept in dialogue with others in the community, with county staff, with all of you, to try to discern the fact from the fiction amongst all the information circulating about the pros and cons of each of the options. Through this process, I came to kind of 2 realizations, which I believe are shared by many here today. First, both options A and B have real strengths, but that a modified, combined strategy would maximize the intended effects and best position us for the future. And second, making substantial additions to multiple schools to address the overcrowding issue is a seriously flawed plan, as it would be done at the expense of our communities, risk creating school environments that are not conducive to learning and are potentially unsafe, and based on the county's population projections, won't adequately address our overcrowding issues. I'm in strong support of Dr. Green's stated goal to eliminate portable classrooms over the next 5 years. However, I don't believe transitioning us from a portable school to a mega school model is a game-changing course of action to take. These schools lack sufficient land to host these types of additions. The plans don't currently incorporate appropriate set aside for cafeterias, gymnasiums, auditoriums, parking, and green spaces. And they attempt to really shoehorn these mega schools into communities that don't have the infrastructure to support them. So I think you should move forward with a lot of the plan tonight. I really ask that you defer the vote regarding the secondary school facility component, and I charge Dr. Green and his staff to work with engaged community members and elected city leaders over a set period of time to formally assess the feasibility of a plan that establishes 2 new high schools, one in Brookhaven and one in Doraville, and that limits additions to schools. We're at a critical juncture right now. Let's take a moment to ensure that we're setting ourselves down the correct path towards achieving our collective goal of developing a school system of excellence. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ritchey.
I'm Cindy Pietkiewicz, and I'm a longtime advocate for public schools. I'm the chair of the Chamblee Middle School Council and a proud parent of children at Chamblee Middle and Chamblee High. I'm a huge advocate for public education and frequently frowned upon by my community who doesn't understand why I'm an advocate for public schools. They don't understand why I'm fighting and investing so much when instead they believe that the school system can't be trusted, to Kim's point, and they have options to send their school kids to other private schools or move out to the county. I've stuck with these schools and fought hard for every school that I've been a part of. I, like others mentioned tonight, believe that we do finally have a superintendent and a school board that can make good decisions for the first time. However, I'll state later that I also am hopeful that you will, in making those good decisions, see the outcrying of a request for a very, very logical deferral on some serious flaws with this plan and some serious concerns, and trust that you will actually make a good, wise decision. I'm here as a leader, talking to fellow leaders, to tell you you can do a better job coming up with a better plan, and you can do a better job listening to us. Now that we finally, 2 weeks and 1 week before a vote is asked of you, have the chance to give you feedback. 1 week to make serious decisions on spending several $100 million is inadequate for you, and it's inadequate for us. Although I would admit that this current process is much better than the last overcrowding, over-districting process that I went through and have now seen the overcrowding at Montgomery and others because you didn't see the data and make the decisions, I do still believe that this process was not fair and was not transparent, that the right information was not provided to us, and that there was extra access provided to certain clusters that were able to unduly influence the direction of the plan. I do not think that there was any creativity offered in trying to come up with an A plus B, and I believe we can do better. So I ask you and join you and ask that all these people that are standing up in the room be taken seriously, that you will stand behind a diverse school district that should serve all kids in our community and not have the public decide to move out to Cobb County or elsewhere. It's particularly Chamblee Charter High School. We are unduly affected. We were never given an option to stay together as a cluster, and we were ashamed and embarrassed when the county promised to finally listen to us and come to a public meeting and cancel the day before. That is very, very embarrassing. We were never given a voice at the table and able to come up with creative options like other clusters that option was selected. Chamblee has worked hard for a decade to take a very, very diverse audience of very different learners, very diverse learners with 75+% minorities and made it work. This plan has lots and lots of flaws to it, and we sent you an 11-page letter detailing all those, and I urge you to read that. I urge you to take the time and not make a decision in 1 week on something that's going to affect the lives of all of our students.
Thank you, Sydney.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to speak with you. My name is Terri Maxwell, and I have children at Chamblee Middle and Chamblee High School. I'm also the co-chair of the Chamblee Middle School Council. I'm respectfully asking that the board defer its vote on Category 2 for several reasons. First, the Chamblee cluster has not had a fair opportunity to provide input and have its questions answered. The Chamblee community has repeatedly tried, with no luck, to engage with the district on our legitimate questions in public meetings at Chamblee High School. Details about the proposed construction plan were not provided until November, and most recently, our meeting scheduled for November 14th was canceled on short notice, and the FAQs we were promised not only were not published prior to Thanksgiving break, but raised more questions than they answered. Second, we're concerned that the plan does not in fact demonstrate the feasibility of the proposed addition. I'd like to refer you to the photo rendering of the proposed addition. The proposed addition would be constructed on our only outdoor gathering space and an active walkway between our two buildings. We do not see it as a feasible plan for a thriving, successful high school, either during construction or after completion. And several other critical aspects of the plan were specifically rejected by the city of Chamblee when our high school was built only several years ago. We've been consistent since our input was requested in September that additional land is critical. Without it, we'll be more than 50% under the acreage recommended by the state. But it's more than just land. With no increase in our gym, auditorium, lockers, fine arts rooms, or athletic fields, academic and extracurricular life will suffer, and school climate will suffer. Third, we're concerned that the plan does not advance our region or district toward a long-term solution to overcrowding. The proposal spends nearly $150 million to add high school capacity in Regions 1 and 2, yet results in only 81 seats total combined for both regions over the projected 2022 enrollment. What if these projections are low and or continue to increase after 2022? Do we add on to the same schools? Where would we even put trailers? Is it really possible that there's not a better solution? How will our taxpayers feel when they truly understand this plan and where it leaves us, since we've not seen any attempt to engage with the greater community? We continue to believe that a fourth high school should be considered as the least disruptive option, most likely to preserve and foster educational and academic excellence for all students. Fourth, the plan has an inequitable, disparate impact on the Chamblee cluster. Quite frankly, we're being asked to bear the brunt of the plan. We'd be the only high school getting addition that didn't request one, the only dual feeder high school, have one of the smallest acreages in the county, and experience more disruptive redistricting than any other high school. The plan tears apart our cluster without commensurate benefits, and we're legitimately concerned that we'll end up with an unprecedented mega school on insufficient acreage with inadequate facilities. We propose that the delay be used to actively engage with the district and our neighboring clusters toward one of two ends. One, either be convinced that our concerns have been addressed and that the recommended plan will allow us to continue to provide outstanding educational and extracurricular experience for our children, or two, develop a revised plan that better serves both the Chamblee cluster and our greater DeKalb community. Can we please just slow down, take a collective breath, and make sure we're doing the right thing for our children and our communities? Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Green and members of the board. My name is Tapika Howard. I'm one of the co-presidents for PTSA at Chamblee Charter High School and have been a resident of DeKalb County for over 20 years. In the summer of 2013, our family made the sacrificial decision to move out of our home of 17 years in Lithonia to the Chamblee area after discovering that our now 12th grade daughter was number 75 on the school choice lottery list. The decision to move to the area was strictly so that both our daughters, the other who is in the 5th grade at Huntley Hills, could obtain what we considered a quality education, as well as be a part of a community of students and stakeholders whose sole purpose was to ensure that our students, their educational climate, safety, and their needs would be priority. Chamblee has done that for us and been that to us and so much more. Since its inception in 1917, Chamblee Charter High School, as you may know, have undergone several renovations, additions, demolitions, and building projects in partnership with DeKalb County School District. However, there has never been a time when the building size was not conducive to the student population we serve. We recently welcomed 200 students that were redistricted from Cross Keys, of which our parents, students, teachers, and school administrators have done an exceptional job with ensuring their transition was seamless. However, my presence at the school during the tornado watch was devastating at best to see that all of their safety was being infringed upon as they all crowded and crammed on the second floor and just a few on the first floor. This confirmed for me that adding 600 additional seats to an already consumed population with no additional land would simply devalue the climate, the quality, and safety that drew my family and I to the school in the first place. If it is accurate that the projected enrollment in 2022 would leave the school 23.39 acres under the recommended state minimum for a school its size, this undersized facility will have a myriad of negative impacts. And those we say we are here to serve, the students will be negatively impacted the most. It is my sincerest concern as a parent and stakeholder that this plan does not provide a long-term resolve for the overcrowding issue in this county, but will serve as another Band-Aid for a bad wound that will continue to grow, impact, and eventually infect other areas. In essence, I believe that this plan would oppose the destiny of so many students like our daughter, whose pathway of diversity, educational climate, and size control were the very ingredients that were vitally necessary to her educational success today. Furthermore, it is not appropriate, fair, or equitable for the DeKalb County School Board to vote on a proposal that would add 600 additional seats with no additional land and leave us without the necessary resources to continue to provide the world-class care and service that our parents, students, teachers, and the community we need serve. Not to include, the community has not had sufficient opportunity to provide feedback. So I'm asking to simply delay this vote on Category 2 for 60 to 90 days and allow our and other affected communities to have some level of feedback. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Howard.
Good evening. My name is Angie Tarline, and I'm a parent of 2 children in the Chamblee cluster. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, I'm here tonight, as several speakers before me, to ask that you defer the vote on Category 2 of the project list. As an attorney, I approach you tonight as I would approach a judge, because you will be the final decision makers in this process, and you are effectively our judges. The board owes a fiduciary duty to the taxpayers of DeKalb County, which is the utmost highest standard of care, and I trust that each one of you take that duty very seriously, and I thank you for that. Accordingly, tonight you have 2 questions to ask yourself. Is the plan presented before you in the best interest of and supported by the community which it is intended to serve, and is it the most responsible and effective use of the taxpayers' money? Let's look at the evidence. Community input sessions prior to the survey heavily favored a Doraville cluster. Elementary school councils were not strongly represented in the initial stages and were not invited to participate in steering committees, despite the fact that it is exactly these children that will be utilizing the facilities in 5 to 7 years. For more than 90% of the survey period, the community favored a Doraville cluster by 70% or more. However, by the close of the survey, after heavy lobbying and in light of the fact that people were allowed to vote hundreds, if not thousands of times, Option B squeaked out Option A, 51% to 45%, but in reality, 51% to 49.5% if you include Option C, which also included a Doraville cluster. At the time of the survey, detailed information regarding school locations and additions were not provided to the public, although available to the planners. Now that this information has been made public, the staunch opposition to Option B is even more resolute. As we stand here today, many, if not most, of the schools that make up 3 of the 4 clusters that will be impacted by Category 2 are opposed to moving forward with this plan as is and have sent letters to the board seeking deferral of the vote. Since the district presented their plan to the community, there has been no formal or effective mechanism provided to the community to give feedback. Based on all projections, all 3 existing schools will be at capacity, and I submit in the case of Chamblee Charter High over capacity upon completion of the additions, the $80 million additions, putting us right back here in a few years talking about this all over again, which is not acceptable to the DeKalb County taxpayers. So back to my questions. Is this plan in the best interest of and supported by the community which it is intended to serve? And is it the most effective and responsible use of the taxpayers' money? By the overwhelming weight of the evidence, I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen of the board, that the answer to both of those questions is a resounding no. As the Board of Education, I have faith that you will fulfill your legal obligation to DeKalb County taxpayers, that you will see the benefit in deferring the vote on Category 2. No one has suggested that a deferral would cause any undue hardship. I thank you for your time. Your service is very much appreciated.
Good evening, Superintendent Green and distinguished members of the board. My name is Priya Sampath. I have a child at Montgomery Elementary and another that will hopefully start their kindergarten next year. I'm also speaking today to ask that you defer the vote to Category 2. My response is grounded in the age-old dictum of at least do no harm. I'm here because I'm very concerned that my child and others from her elementary school will go on to go to a high school that even today is too small for its current population. As you've heard several times today, based on your forecast, the 3 proposed high schools plus additions will have 2,300 plus students coming. That just has me nervous. Whether those students come from schools in the existing Chamblee cluster or reclustered Chamblee cluster is of lesser concern than the fact that there'll be that many children in each of these schools. Lakeside High School, Dunwoody High School, and Chamblee High School are projected to be at 100% capacity by the time the proposed additions to these schools are complete. Given these numbers and given the growth patterns, having a capacity safety margin of less than 1% just isn't prudent. This is the main reason why I would like for the board and the stakeholders to further consider this proposed solution and also to determine the most efficient use of our tax dollars. The plan, the current option B plan, which adds 600 seats with no purchase of land, depends on features that the city of Chamblee did not approve just 4 years ago when the current design was finalized. It doesn't take into account the need for additional space for athletics and just sheer school facilities like an expanded cafeteria, fields, gyms, lockers that would continue to keep Chamblee High School the quality school that it is. What we want is a campus that is at least as good as its current campus. It doesn't want to be crammed in a space that is less than half the land the state recommends for a 2,400-seat school. Like any thinking person, I do not want this for my children, their friends, or for others in their community, and I hope you do not want it for the children of DeKalb County. This is why I'm, again, urging you to defer vote on this provision for a period of 60 to 90 days. During this deferral period, I think Chamblee and all other Region 1 and 2 schools would like to have DSCD tell us the advantages of its plan, show their how spending $150 million additional dollars on high school capacities would only end up in creating 81 more seats than the projected 2022 enrollment. We in the Chamblee cluster are eager to collaborate with other stakeholders in the region to identify more creative solutions. And perhaps during this time of deferral, rebuilding trust could be another goal. I appreciate this opportunity and thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming. As you recall, in our business meeting, in our work session, E-SPLOST 5, 2017 through 2022 project list approval was presented by Mr. Josh Williams. Before I call for a vote, is there any further discussion on this item? Mr. Jester.
Don't we need to move them second first? Don't we need to move them second and then open discussion?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay. Call for a motion to approve the project list. Moved by Mr. Orson, second by Mrs. Dr. Marley. Is there any discussion? Mr. Jester, I'm sorry.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, speaking as a board member, as a resident of Region 1, as a parent with kids in the Dunwoody cluster. The Dunwoody cluster, the Chamblee cluster, Sagamore Elementary, who has come to a number of board meetings in force, they're asking for a delay on the vote for Category 2 of the E-SPLOST project list. So I've heard, I'm confident that these things will get worked out. I trust DeKalb. I hope things will work out well. I would say hope is not a method. I hope that this vote doesn't go down like it's always gone down, like I expect it always will go down, against our will, and with us getting the short end of the stick. So given the feedback from these communities and the request by numerous school councils to defer the decision, I move that we delay the vote for Category 2 of the E-SPLOST project list for 3 months.
Second. Is there a second? Since we didn't get a second, that request.
Motion fails.
Motion fails. Okay. Is there any further discussion? If not, I call for the vote. Mr. McMahan?
Thank you, Chair. So in attending several, and I mean several, community meetings and listening to my constituents, I do have a very vocal group, Sagamore, my home community, that is asked to divert the vote. As I am a resident of Sagamore, I am also a board member of this group elected to listen to all my constituents. I just want to be clear. I oversee 16 schools in the Lakeside and Tucker district. 15 of the 16 schools have said, please, move forward with a vote. We do have some reservations. We want to be part of the process. We'd like to have some further information, further dialogue. But we understand the severity of the conditions that we're currently in, and they're okay with moving forward with the vote. So with that as my barometer, I am supportive of moving forward with the vote. I will be part of our community and listening to the community and looking for further information with the support of the district. And if there are any alternative solutions moving forward, I feel confident that they will be heard. But that is where I am right now. So I appreciate the support from my community's request for the vote to move forward. Thank you, Chair.
Dr. Marley?
Yeah, I just want to say that, and for all those on either side, is that myself and the board, we don't take these things lightly. And we have to look at the totality of how it affects everyone that's concerned. And I remember the many calls I received, and there were many people. I called everyone back who called me if they left a message, and some said, I was surprised that you called me. And my philosophy is if you call me, that means you deserve a return call. And we discussed those things. I asked them to send emails. We got a lot of emails, and I forwarded them to the superintendent. But I want to say to you that, as I said earlier, this wasn't taken lightly. We have to look at the totality. We have a section over here, a section over there. At some point, this county has to unite and recognize that we're not sectioned. We shouldn't be sectionalized. It has to be something that's not fragmented, but we come together with unity. There's been a North, there's been a South for so long, but when do we unite and become one DeKalb? I don't know whether it ever happened unless we change our hearts and change our minds and be able to see that we are here to educate all children. And when we look at a school in the South and some of those schools, and Indian Creek Elementary, I mean, the conditions are deplorable. So if those of you who haven't crossed the divide and begin to look at some of those schools and the conditions that those children are having to learn in, It's deploring. I used to be support director for Teach for America many years ago. I used to go down in the South. And I remember the buildings and remember the children. What a sad situation. And there's no reason in 2016, and we're dealing with the lead problem, but there are many other problems. How many schools that don't have air conditioning, heating when it's called for? When the water fountains are not working, the bathrooms. Girls have to go in the bathrooms with no doors, boys too. When the athletic rooms, the weight rooms, when they're actually laying on carts that have the cushions pulled out, where buildings look like prisons. So at some point, we've got to come outside of ourselves, no matter what side you're on, and say what's best for every child. And sometimes we have to make a move. My 6-year-old grandson was telling me how to play chess the other day. And he had every move in place. The bishop, the queen, he knew everything. And he said, it's strategy, Grandma, it's strategy. And I want to say to you all, we have used the best strategy. And I want to commend Mr. Williams, Mr. Drake. They did a fantastic job. Some people might not believe it. And you know that I don't stand for anything that I don't believe in. And I won't talk about something that I'm not for and haven't done the research on. But these people put a lot of research. Dr. Green made sure. I had questions. We've asked questions. We've done everything there could be. But we have to begin to look at, sometimes we can't see it now, but in the long run, we have to begin to look at what's in the best interest for all children. And I want you to know that I and this board looked at the best interest for all children. And at some point, talking not just now, but how do we move forward as a united front and educating all of our children.
Mr. Orson.
Thank you. I do want to echo Dr. Morley's point that there's been a lot of hard work done here, and I think we have something good here. But we're only at the beginning of a process. This is a process that will involve the community. This will involve really finite input that will help us define how we execute this plan. But to delay it would be unacceptable, and there are great needs that have been left unmet and unaddressed for 20 years, and we would be continuing a wrong that has been perpetuated by this school district and this county in a completely unacceptable fashion. We have heard the concerns, and we have heard people on both sides of the issue, and quite frankly, there's never going to be a perfect solution. And I think part of it is that we create our own set of expectations that there can be a perfect solution. There never will be, because some people will see this is good and another aspect is something good for them, and it is a process. But I believe that this is a good plan, and there will be those who disagree, and I respect that. But this will be the plan, if accepted by the board, from which we will move forward. And it will be incumbent upon everybody in the respective communities to continue their engagement and participation to make the plan and the execution of that plan even better. And at the same time, I think we will be doing a lot of good for a lot of children who have been passed over for way too long in this county.
Thank you. With that said, I call for the vote. It passes 6-1.